everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on Revolutionary Girl Utena episode 2, and I could not wait. I literally watched episode 1 yesterday, and so I was like, oh, no, you've introduced all of these concepts. You've introduced, there's a Rose Bride, and there's a student council that are maybe made up of prince or princesses, and there's knights, and there's like medieval meets sci-fi futuristic, and it's like Neon Genesis had a baby with Sailor Moon and Puella Magi Madoka Magica, and I was like, I need more answers. So, do I think episode 2 is going to give me all the answers? Of course not. But I feel like I need to at least watch episode 2 to maybe get, because the pilot episode wants you to come back and do exactly what I'm doing and watch episode 2. They want you to come back. They want to get you hooked. The second episode is always weird in an anime because you've come off this high from the pilot, and then episode 2 is kind of like, okay, let's let the ground settle a little bit, and now let's focus on just a little bit, maybe more world building, maybe more character development. And so do I think that this episode is going to go as hard as episode 1? Probably not, but I felt like I needed to go ahead and watch so that I could maybe get an idea on my own before people start trying to spoil. So if you are tuning into the channel for the first time for this series, please feel free to comment down below, but please note I do have a moderator that checks my comments. So if anybody has any spoilers, what I consider a spoiler to be is if the show is going to tell me and show me, that's a spoiler. Let me find out in my own time. If I'm wrong about something, you don't have to correct me in the comments. I'll figure it out when it comes up in the actual episode. If it never comes up, if it's something that's never going to be addressed in the show or the movie, sure, you can talk about that. But if it is something that has to do with character or plot development that I'm going to find out later on, I want to find out as I watch. And my moderator is going to check for that. And if your comment doesn't, if your comment reveals anything like that, then I won't read it. So just keep that in mind. But with that being said, I'm super excited. I love the border. I love the aesthetic. I love that it's like the late 80s, early 90s animation style. It feels very shoujo. It's checking off a lot of boxes for me, and I'm really excited about that. So I can't wait. I want to know more about Utena. I'm kind of fascinated the most at this point. I mean, the council is fascinating. We know Sayonji and Kiryu are red and green haired guys who are equally interesting and equally kind of creepy. And then we have the blue haired one and we have the orange haired one. I know there's a yellow haired one from the OP, but we've not met her yet. And then we have the idea of Utena and Himamiya. And Himamiya and Utena, I'm like, are they like interchangeable as far as gender goes? Do they just keep reincarnating and meeting each other in each new world? Like, there's so many things I want answers to, and I already enjoy this series because it frames the mystery kind of like Neon Genesis, where you're like, I kind of know what's going on. I kind of have it figured out, but then there's parts of it that I don't. So, I'm very intrigued. So, with that being said, we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right into episode 2 of Revolutionary Girl Utena. Thank you, Anthony, once again for the files. I super appreciate it. All of my love. But we're going to start this episode here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it. Well, not a bad second episode at all. Oh my god, this definitely feels like Neon Genesis Evangelion, where they're like, we're gonna give you some exposition while dialogue is happening. We're gonna layer those at the same time so you don't know where to look. We're gonna give you songs talking about the Jurassic period and the evolution of biology that maybe you'll understand what's going on with. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And the good thing is, even though I'm watching ahead, I know that some people in the comments are going to explain the song lyrics or things that they've been able to look up, because I don't want to look up things on my own because I don't want to be spoiled, but there are a couple words I might look up the meaning of during the discussion just as we get in this episode. But surprisingly, for the second episode, usually the second episode after a pilot is a lot more low energy. No, this one definitely had some insight, had some exposition of what's going on, had a little bit more intrigue, and there was definitely the mystery of, so this spirit of the prince, is it just going back and forth in cycles with Utena and Himamiya? Like, what we gonna get with that? So we need to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the 2 roses, and they're just in cycle with the 2 of them. But then there's the prince, and there's like a 3rd rose involved. So I'm so curious as to what the whole deal is, because there's definitely a connection between Utena and Himamiya, and then we have this castle and everything that's upside down. We have Utena going up after Saionji. We have the design of the orange hair and blue haired individuals and the golden haired individuals. I'm curious to know about them. Kiryu is a damn flirt. He is a bisexual king. He is a flirt. He will get it on with anybody that moves. He's just like, oh, hello. Hi, Saionji. Here's all the sexual tension. Hello, everyone else. Hello, Utena, baby doll. It's like, well, who are you? I'm just like, okay. I like Kiryu is kind of sleazy, but I like his character because of how charming he is. And he seems fine. He seems okay, right? Saionji's just a dick, and I could do without him, but he's good TV. He's good drama. So anyway, the whole idea is it's whoever ends up with the bride at the end of all things gets the power of Dios and the power to revolutionize the world. Okay, fine. And so then we have in the OP the idea of like the place where they're battling explodes and crumbles, and then you have the two of them on horseback next to each other crumbling at the same time, and then we have the place crumbling and he's below it. I have so many questions, but then they're flying above each other together. I have so many questions. And I feel like we're going to find out by the end of the series. It's just going to be building that mystery up, right? I do love the idea. I've watched Nozaki-kun. I've watched the Nozaki-kun series, and the idea of there was a character on there. She's a woman biologically, but she kind of like wants to don like a male persona. And so all of the other high school girls, like she has her own fangirl group of girls. It reminds me of that. And then Utena getting the girls to be like fangirling over her after the basketball game reminds me also of what series is it? It's Ouran High School Host Club. Yes, where there's like the girl group, other girls from the other school in Ouran High School Host Club that visits, and Toru like gets is it Toru or is it, oh my god, I'm losing track of my girls in shoujo series. But anyway, they come to the school and they fall in love with the main girl character. Is it Fuyumi? Oh my god, I'm gonna lose track. Y'all will know who I'm talking about from Ouran High School Host Club, the girls school. But yeah, so Utena, it's just this mentality, because Utena does not seem bothered by the presence that she gives off, and she doesn't seem bothered by the fact that these girls like her. She does tell Wakaba to get off of her and quit calling her her only one. She's kind of like, I don't feel that way about you, girl, but it's fine if we're besties. But yeah, she doesn't seem bothered, and when Himamiya asks her why she's dressing up as a boy, she's like, just because I want to. I don't have any other reason for it. I just like to. So it's going to be interesting with this whole prince spirit, if that's going to become a thing. But yeah, so they're in the academy, for whom the rose smiles. So basically, whoever wins the duel, whoever is on top of the duelists, which makes me think of Yu-Gi-Oh! Every time, whoever is the top duelist gets to have control over Himamiya. And what you do with that control is kind of up to you. So we saw how Saionji handles it. He's very possessive. He's abusive. He just wants whatever power having Himamiya is going to give him, and he doesn't care at all about Himamiya. And that's not cool. So then you have Utena, who's kind of the opposite. Like, she treats Himamiya very kindly, but she doesn't seek any power from her. She's just like, I just don't want you to get hurt, because that sucks. So it's interesting to see how polar opposite Saionji and Utena are. I don't know if we're going to get to see the others and how they interact with Himamiya and how their bond with her is and how it's different or similar from Saionji and Utena. Because it seems like to me that you have Himamiya. Oh no, this marker completely died. I was banking on it because it was red. So you have Himamiya, who is the Rose Bride, right? And so we kind of have a spectrum started here, where on the one hand we have Utena, it's like we're going to have like a Punnett square sort of situation, but we have Utena, who is nice to Himamiya and does not care for power. She's like, that don't matter to me. I'm just being nice to you. And on the opposite end, we have Saionji, who is mean, and that's a nice way of saying it, mean to Himamiya, and only cares for power. So then that's a spectrum, right? And so that leaves us to wonder, is there like a middle ground? We know that we have Kiryu, who I could see Kiryu being nice to Himamiya, but I could also see him wanting power. So I could see him being like the middle ground between Utena and Saionji. We have him. We also have the blue-haired individual, the orange-haired individual, and the yellow-haired individual. So we have like our 6 individuals here plus Himamiya. And then we have this prince that we're going to put over here for now, whose spirit, which seems like, is he Dios? His power seemed to imbue within Utena, who has his sword. And maybe it's something where, we're going to talk about this when we get to the duel, where because it's her with the sword, he's able to like conduct into the sword and then possess her. But if anybody else has the sword, it doesn't work. Like, it has to be Utena. Like, if her and Himamiya are the reincarnations of the prince over and over again, I think that's where they're headed with it, but I don't know for sure. I really like this interaction with Utena and Wakaba, though, where she holds up Magnolia Waltz, which, of course, it's about flowers and dancing, right? It's a shoujo, and this series makes sense. And she talks about how the guy that she liked in the story ended up dumping her and left her with a broken heart, but the next day she found a new guy that was even better. So I like how she said at first she didn't like the story because she was trying to go after Saionji, but now that Saionji's dumped her and she realizes what a jerk he is, she's like, no, I actually like the ending now because it gives her hope that somebody's going to come along and sweep her off her feet that's not Saionji. I like Wakaba. Wakaba definitely has that Molly vibe from Sailor Moon, that she's like, she's not a magical girl herself, but she's a companion to Utena, and she's like the best friend that's kind of like the quote-unquote straight man that doesn't have these powers and isn't connected. Which, again, Kuroko's basketball rules. If you have oddly colored hair, you're probably part of this student council. If your hair is not a natural color, you're probably part of it. But yeah. So then she's like, I'll just be with you, Tina. And she's like, no, it's fine. And then we see Himamiya join the class. Then I love that we have this like Team Rocket style orchestra, like just Neon Genesis goes up into the chambers, things unlock. It's like, it is batshit crazy. And the orchestra organ music gets me every time. I'm like, what the heck? So then they bring up this idea. If the eggshell is not broken, the chick will die without being born. So they have this metaphor saying that the egg has to be broken in order for them to be born. Okay, that makes sense. And then we see the one show up as they go up the elevator. We are the chick. And the egg is our world. So the egg is the world. And the student council is the ones that are having to be born. So they say here, as they all gather, if we do not break the world's shell, we will die without being born. We have to break the world's shell. This seems... I don't know if we're getting Berserk vibes or not, but this is like, so they say that they have to break the world's shell. So they have to maybe cross into another dimension, break dimensions. The number 3, of course, is very important in any culture. It's like a big, if you're into numerology, the number 3 is very important. It's tied to spirituality, all of this. The fact that there are 3 tresses and drapes over the curtains, and the fact they're at a table for 3 is interesting. They're like to revolutionize the world. And so, yeah. So the idea is to break the world's shell and revolutionize it. Now, I don't know if revolutionize it means control the world. I don't know if it means change it. I don't know if it's take it over or control it from within. We don't know. But we also get this world building that they receive letters from the end of the world. The end of the world. Is that a place? Is it a person? They do send letters. as correspondence, like omnipotent letters from above. I love that their Go Fish cards have roses on them. That's hilarious. He's like, have you received? Now, what's interesting is that the roses for Kiryu are white. They're not colored blue or orange. They're white roses instead of red roses. So I find that interesting. I also like the blue and the red, the blue and the orange individuals. Their sleeves are colored. Like one sleeve is colored for each of them, and hers, it's the left sleeve. And I think the other one's a girl too, because they have a female voice, a female sounding voice actress. But that means nothing because like Armin in Attack on Titan is played by a female voice actress. Genders in voice acting are very hard to detect. So I do like the orange and blue haired council members each have a sleeve that's on opposing arms that are their colors. It gives them like a Tweedledee Tweedledum vibe, sort of. If we're doing like Alice in Wonderland, it makes them feel connected. And they're like, yeah, I got my letter. We all received his letters and carry out the instructions from within. So the end of the world seems to be a he, and they feature instructions. Now, what's interesting is Utena is not receiving the letters. Utena has not received any letters from the end of the world, but she has the ring that gives her the right to duel. So the big question is, was the prince part of the student council because he had the ring? Why did he give the ring to Utena? Is he the one that is sending the letters? And this is all, is he sending the letters to try to find Utena in this other lifetime? Like, how does that work? And it is written on this letter that Saionji faced defeat. So, but it seems like, is the sword, because it's like, how would he know that Saionji faced defeat? I mean, Kiryu knew because he was watching with his little, like, opera glasses. But how did the end of the world know? Do they use the sword like for surveillance? Is the sword connected to the end of the world where they're able to sense what happens? And if they lose, if it exchanges hands, maybe. I also like that you have basically, I mean, I know that the one student council member has orange hair and not yellow hair because we have a yellowed hair student council member, but it's kind of like the primary colors there, right? Which would make your secondary colors the orange-haired girl, and then Saionji and Himamiya, and then Utena's not even really part of that. But she's engaged to the girl who won the duel. And they're like, well, someone outside the student council receiving letters from the end of the world. So the orange-haired student council member asks, like, how did she get the letters? Did she receive them? How did she know about the duel taking place? And honestly, the only reason the duel happened was because he was a jerk to Wakaba. That's the only way. Now, Kiryu is interesting because Kiryu's like, well, I don't know what happened. I don't know. How do we, who knows? Who just what the letter said. And I'm like, bitch, you've been watching the whole time. So Kiryu knows way more than he's letting on, even if he doesn't know much. So I'm like, he's playing his cards really close to the vest as they play Go Fish, right? She wears the rose seal. I saw it with my own eyes. Them manicured hands. Them hands have a better manicure than I do. And they're like, who is this girl? And then the blue-haired one knows who she is. She's known amongst the middle school students and quite popular. And then Kiryu says, very gallant and lovely. I'm like, keep it in your pants, sir. Isn't this funny? And then the one says, this isn't funny. Another participant gets added without us knowing. Like, yeah, like how this person show up in the duel. If it happens again, what will you do? Drop out of the game? At this moment when it was like, are you going to drop out of the game? What it reminded me of, seeing this triangle of individuals playing a game that is possibly determining the fate of the world around it, made me think of Psychopaths. And I was like, oh, this seems very familiar. Which is funny as I'm finishing that series. I'm like, okay. So they're like, the letters are one-sided messages from the end of the world. So they're just one-sided. They are not corresponded. You don't write letters back to the end of the world. They just send you correspondence and you just go to from there, which is interesting to me. And so then what do they say from there? They say whether or not we obey them is our decision. So the letters do give you a choice. Again, Psychopaths. What the fudge? They do give you a choice. when we opened the door to the arena with these rose seals, oh, it said the illusory castle appeared just as the letters said it would. So they opened the seal. So they basically went over to the forest, opened the seal, and the castle appeared. And the letters told them that that would happen. And they're like, I know. I couldn't drop out after seeing that. So yeah, so basically they all were like, it seems like they all, my question is, how did they all get the rings? How were they chosen? How did they end up? Because the orange-haired student council member seems like she saw the castle in the forest and everything and decided, well, I have to stay into the game because it's too interesting. But it's like, who gave them the rings? How is it determined? How long have they been student council president? Is this like a Twilight thing? Like, what is going on? As the letters of the end of the world say, the one who wins the duel and become engaged to the Rose Bride will eventually reach the castle and receive the power to revolutionize the world. Okay, so the goal is to reach the castle. To reach the castle and get the power to revolutionize the world. My question with that, though, is how many battles you got to do to reach the castle? Like, do you have to defeat everybody that you duel? How does that work? How does the castle get closer and closer the more duels that you do? How does that function? How does that game work? We don't know yet. So at this point, we only know just a little bit. And so I'm intrigued by the blue-haired student council member that's timing all of this. I don't know what the purpose of timing it is. I'm going to be curious what their power is. That's why we continue to fight. Okay. And then it's like 16 minutes and 42 seconds. I'm so curious. I guess we'll find out as we go further. So anyway, they get assigned new dorms for the new term. And Utena gets a dorm all to herself. And Wakaba kind of makes fun of her, being like, oh, well. She's like, my room's on the 3rd floor of the south dorm, so you can come by and stop by. But she's like, here you go. And Utena gets this mansion to herself. Now, I liked the little tower that has the zodiac around it. I thought that was pretty cool. It had all the zodiac symbols around it. I'm wondering if the other council members will eventually live in this same mansion, if they're going to live with her, or because why would she get a mansion all to herself? I wonder if they're eventually going to live with her, or if it's going to become a meeting room for the council itself. Like, I do love that chandelier that looks like a big old bouncy cube, a spiky cube. Also, Choo Choo is this little monkey that looks kind of like a mouse, and when she opens up the door originally to her dorm, she sees this little mouse. So I'm like, has Choo Choo been there all along? Or has Choo Choo been there all along? Or did Himamiya just make Choo Choo the moment that she entered back through the door? Because she seems like, I like that Utena, she closes the door as soon as she sees the dorm room and how terrible it is and in what poor shape it is. And she seems to think about it for a moment, and she could have walked away. She could have gone and asked for a new dorm, but she chose to pursue it and was like, nope, I'm going to try to clean it up. I can do this. And it's like her ability to persevere was rewarded, because when she opens up the door again, then there's Himamiya, who is sitting there like cleaning for her. And it's like, oh, well, that's nice. So yeah. So she opens up the door again, and it's like 2 bunk beds. Now, I couldn't see at first. I thought it was just 1 bed. I was too distracted by Himamiya, and I looked over and I was like, oh, it's just 1 bed. They're going to have to share a bed. No, it's bunk beds. I'm like, why'd you say that, Utena? There was clearly bunk beds for them. It looks like a proper dorm. Mm-hmm. And then she's wrote her name like under it, which is hilarious. But yeah. And she's like, sharing it is no coincidence. I like she's trying to like cram all her junk into the closet. It was funny. She's like, I'm engaged to the winner of the duel. I wonder if it's going to be that this entire dorm is going to have like all bunk beds, and if Utena loses a duel, she'll go stay in the room with someone else now. I honestly don't want her to stay in the room with Saionji ever again. If that was even a thing. I don't want it. I don't like Saionji with her. He's mean. He's cruel. He's projecting a lot of his own insecurities, but that's not an excuse to be that way to another person. I do like the tea sets with the rose bottoms. Those are nice. So, Himamiya does not seem to understand how she got in this predicament either, which is a little frustrating because I would like to know, like, how do you feel about having a sword come out of your chest? Do you know why that happened? And she doesn't seem to know. And I'm like, what? I assume we're going to find out more, obviously, as the story goes on. But I'm like, girl, I feel kind of bad. She doesn't even know, like, why this is happening to her. And she's like, why do you dress as a boy? And Utena goes, well, I kind of like it. And Himamiya is like, well, the same for me. I like being in this position where I have abilities, and I like being of use to someone. And it feels almost like, in a sense, kind of a metaphor, because I know women growing up, and I don't know any men like this, so that's why I say I know women, but I know several women I grew up with that they always wanted to be in a relationship. They wanted to be relied upon. They wanted to be needed. They wanted to be of use to someone in a relationship. And so they always had to have a partner. And I am definitely not like that, so I could not relate. But I have watched people be in those relationships, and I've watched girls that I know be destroyed when their relationship ends and they don't know what to do with themselves. And I also know women, because they have to be in that relationship, they've ended up in that relationship with some really scummy people. And I'm like, ugh. So I kind of feel for Himamiya because I know people like her, right? And she's like, does it bother having us here to bother you? And she's like, well, wait, who's us? And then she mentions Choo Choo. Choo Choo's really cute. He kind of has the tie with the little ring is ridiculous. Y'all, where that little tie is from and why they have an earring, don't know. But it is really cute. I also like that the roses become bananas. And this is Choo Choo, my little friend. And I like that he was choking, and at first I was like, Utena, you're not going to do the Heimlich on this little monkey, but I guess the tea worked to help break down the cake clogging its throat. And they're like, oh, this is the first time Choo Choo is taken to liking another person. She's like, well, I am the most popular girl in school, so I can't imagine why. So she asks about the ring, and all that Himamiya knows is that the student council members wear them. She's like, the student council members wear them. It's a rose seal. Anyone who has that ring can participate in the duels, is entitled to. So you're the current champion, and that's how you get me. The other bears are going to challenge you one by one to the duels, which reminded me a lot of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where it's like, you're going to have to battle my 7 deadly exes over and over again until you win my affections. This reminds me a lot of Scott Pilgrim in a way, and I'm not opposed to that. I like Scott Pilgrim a lot, but it's kind of funny to me. And then I like Utena's like, why do I have to fight these people? That seems pointless. I don't want to keep fighting pointless duels. And Himamiya's like, well, is it pointless? Meanwhile, I love how dramatic this series is. It goes for the drama 100%. Saionji is a dramatic little bitch. It just goes to him, like, looking over his swords, being like, I have 2 swords left to just cut her in pieces. And I'm like, dude, what the fudge? Yeah. Where it shows him with, like, the swords with the rose hilts and everything. Oh my god. Like, he ain't playing with practice swords. Like, ridiculous. And then as he's battling Kendo, I love that we see him and the president just shows up. He's like, oh, hey, you're technically a member of our club. Is the captain of the Kendo club going to fight the middle schooler again? So are they in high school and she's in middle school? Is that what this is? And Saionji's thing is like, I want the power to revolutionize the world. It's wrong that the bride should be engaged to a girl like her. And Kiri's like, that's just how it is. She won the duel. No matter what you say, Himamiya will be engaged to the victor of the duel. And Saionji's like, she belongs to me. He's got this Gaston coding going on. She said she would obey me forever. I even have it written down in our exchange diary. I like that Kiryu's like, you all kept a diary and wrote it together? It's like if Saionji reminds me of, Saionji is literally that person on Facebook that has a couple's account. He literally would have Saionji and Himamiya as their Facebook account and being like, no, we have our joint account. She's not going to cheat on me. And it's like, bitch, what? I'm like, Saionji is taking this very personally, but I'm like, you just told Utena that Himamiya will obey whoever is the top duelist. So that obviously means if you're not the top duelist, it won't be you. And I'm sure that Saionji, they're going to play, I can just see them playing the sympathy card with him of like, well, here's why he's so possessive, and here's why he's the way that he is, and he has all of these trust issues, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that may be, but that doesn't excuse him from being like a total jerk. Like, that's not an excuse. I can understand maybe why he's like this, but the only way I feel slightly bad for him is that he was convinced that because they wrote in a diary together that they were going to stay together. And I'm like, dude, that's not the case. So anyway, it seems like Utena and Himamiya for now are the only ones in the dorm. And then we find out that Saionji just came up to the mansion and was like, why don't you obey me? And Himamiya is like, I'm sorry, but I'm engaged to Utena. You know how this song and dance goes. And he's like, but when we were engaged, you swore to devote yourself to me completely. And he's like, didn't you? And she's like, my engagement to you is over, so give up on me. And for a moment, it seems like he has like this moment where he's really sad about it. And I was like, oh, damn, that sucks. But then, what does he do? He smacks the bejesus out of her. And I'm like, but no, you were doing all right. But we didn't need that. I'm like, nobody needs to see that, dude. Like, not cool. Not cool at all. My thing is that with Himamiya, she basically, it almost seems like she's forced to be with whoever has, I'm going to put in quotations, won her. Which feels very much like a genie, right? She's like, I can only be with you if you've won me. Which sucks for Himamiya. She doesn't get much choice in the matter. But also, it sounds, like there's a curse on this power, where I'm going back to the OP where they talked about how we said we wouldn't fall in love again. Like, is it a curse where she can't help who she's with and who she has to obey? So it's almost like you can't really be in love with someone if they're bound by whoever has won this existential circumstance. But also, it seems like a curse that she's forced to be in a relationship with whoever has won her power. Like, it's like the knight saving the princess, and it's kind of like a perverted version of that. So I feel like it feels like, when the genie gets into Jafar's hand in Aladdin versus Aladdin's hand, and Aladdin's like, genie, why aren't you listening to me? And he's like, I'm sorry, kid, I got a new master now. Like, that feels like Himamiya. She's like, I'm sorry, Saionji, I've got a new master now, I'm not listening to you. And Saionji just he can't take it. I also like that Utena's like, bitch, what? He's like, I'm gonna have a rematch. And she's like, I don't want to have a rematch against you. And I like that Utena is playing hard to get. She doesn't want to admit that she was fighting for Himamiya's sake. This time she says, before she was fighting for Wakaba, because he was a jerk to Wakaba. Now she's like, you stepped on Choo Choo, you made him sad, I'm fighting for him now. So it's like, girl, can't you just admit that you're fighting for Himamiya? Come on. She's like, I don't care about this Rose Bride stuff. And he's like, well, if you remain engaged to the Rose Bride as a duelist, you can't refuse or you'll be expelled. And she's like, fine, I'll accept. And Himamiya is like, well, I thought you didn't want to accept the duel. She's like, well, I don't have a choice. I'll be expelled if I don't. And she's like, I'll just lose on purpose. That shouldn't be a problem. And Himamiya may want to say, I really wish you wouldn't lose on purpose, because at that moment when she said, oh, I'll just lose on purpose and we won't have a problem, I'm like, did you just see him smack her? Like, you're going to let her go back to that? And the part that sucks is Himiya's like, because Utena's her master, she's like, yep, do what you like. And I'm like, did you not just see what happened? But Utena's a little tsundere, in a sense, because even though she says, I'll just lose on purpose, she doesn't. She doesn't lose on purpose. She can't. Meanwhile, we go back. I like the idea of this Greek choir, like this weird puppetry Greek choir, like the two roses talking about the duel happening. It's very creepy and highly effective. It feels like the duo from Cowboy Bebop giving exposition. They even dress like cowboys in this scene, which is what reminded me of it. And they're like, oh, but brave hero, of how hard it is to lose on purpose. And then there's just a random cactus passing over. What? So yeah, then we go up to the same dais as before, And at first when it started, I was like, oh, well, this song and dance is going to be exactly the same as it was before. But now we see Himamiya help like give her fancy attire, which literally just added fringe and like a clasp. That's all it did. But yeah, the absolute destiny, the apocalypse darkness. All right. Okay. I feel like the top of that spire reminds me of Bleach. It reminds me of the top of the hill where Byakuya and Ichigo fought. That reminds me of that. And then the castle in the sky that's upside down is absolutely Soul Eater. 100% Soul Eater. That it looks like the same damn castle. So that's so interesting to me. Yeah. And also Neon Genesis because it's upside down. Right? So then we have her show up. Ready to duel. And Saionji's ready to battle her. And they do the same thing as before. Except he's like, you won last time because it was just, I was caught off guard. But I'm the better swordsman than you. So I'm going to defeat her. And it does seem like it's going to work, right? So then there's this song that starts playing that is a totally different dueling song in green. It feels like maybe, I don't know if this is like supposed to be, the thing that gets me is the same animation, and I'm sure that was a budget thing, but the same animation of Utena as well. Like it literally looks like Utena's never made that face at all in this series so far, but they just reused the same image and changed the hairdo. So I'm sure Kiryu is going to end up with Himamiya at some point, and it's going to do him as well. I'm like, what the fudge? What? I'm going to get a shot of that real quick. But then this song plays, right? This song where she's like, I want the power to revolutionize the world. Okay. All right. I want to get a picture of that too. And it's all in green, and there's lots of discussion of the ocean. Like, lots of discussion of the ocean. Where as they start fighting, a celestial time scale, the primordial sea. So we're talking about like the dawn of time, right? Erosion, sedimentation, right? And then what else do we have here? And then 3 billion years, the birth of life, a geological time scale. I do love the choreography, especially with Saionji and his expressions during this. So they're like, okay, we're going back to the dawn of time. That's what we're happening in this song. Okay. And then there's other things they just throw out, random phrases that they say Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian. I'm going to look these up right now because I'm so curious. I want to know Devonian. Oh, it's a period. It is the age of fishes is Devonian, a part of the Paleozoic era. And then, let me see, Ordovician. What period is that? That's the second period of the Paleozoic era, 485 million years ago. And then Cambrian period is talking about between the ice ages. And Silurian period is talking about when Earth underwent considerable changes. So, are we talking about revolutionizing, like changing the world like the Ice Age? What? What are we doing with that? And so then we have 3 other words. I mean, bacteria is pretty obvious, but Kalinia is a fossil that's cyanobacteria. And then stromatolite is fossils whose origins are debated only a few decades ago, but they are connected to this cyanobacteria as well. I'm like, we're talking about like the Jurassic Park period, and I'm like, what is happening in this? Yeah, Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. And he's like, you're valuing your own life. What does he say there? Because he goes, what does he tell her? He's like, valuing that rose more than your own life. And it's like, yeah, she's not wanting to actually lose the duel. She cares about Himamiya, even if she doesn't quite want to admit it. And he's like, alive or dead, it doesn't matter. The one to lose their rose loses the duel. So then we have these other words come out, right? And I want to look them up too. Lycopodium is a plant. It is a genus of club mosses known as ground pines or creeping cedars. Okay. And then clavatum is also a succulent plant, maybe tying to the cactuses, and that's why they did the whole cowboy thing. And then same with a selaginella. And then Tamaricina is also foliage as well. Yeah, so are these all tying to Saionji? And then Pluro, they like spent a long time singing that song, Pluromia. Oh my god. Yeah, it's a plant. It's like a little cactus too. Oh my god, that's connecting to that little segue. What? So then they go at it again, and we have as we start to see Kiryu with his damn opera glasses, Catonia, which is a form of fossil as well, and Benetitalis is something from the Triassic period. All these plant names in this song are just ridiculous. Olivia's just sitting there, just saying an ammonite, same deal, with his little glasses. What a winch. I can't, watching this battle go down. I feel like Kiryu and Saionji, pardon my language, would hate fuck each other. I think they would. I think they would. Yeah, so Sea Rose and Sea Lily. As he says, we call it the Sword of Dios, but it does not have any special power of its own. It's just a sword that you get for freebies. And that to me tells me that Saionji didn't exactly know what power he even had access to, because he's like, oh, it's just a sword you get to pull it out of this broad's chest. That's it. I'm like, did you not even know what sword you had? Like, what? It's a champion's sword wielded by the best. And I guess that's how he referred to it. He was just like, well, it's a sword you get for being the best. And it's like, you didn't think that there was anything else to it? Sea Angel, Sea Mirror, Sea Gateway, Sea Haze. It's just like all these seas. And then it said at one point, like, see you, see me. Yeah. Carboniferous, Permian, Paleozoic. Yeah, going back to these, like, ancient eras of the dawning of time. I guess suggesting that we've fought for love since the beginning of time. We've fought for those we love since the dawn of time. Maybe. Yeah. I'm just like, ah. And then we see him, like, standing over her. See you, see me. He's like, both the sword and Anthe belong to me. They are flowers blooming for my sake. And she's like, bitch, you think very highly of yourself. And so he says the Paleozoic, what did they say right there? It said the Paleozoic within the flesh. Like basically saying all of this time and space within ourselves, all this history has built us to what we are. Continuing to live. Continuing to die. But then the rose, as he's about to kill her, the rose seal activates. And from the castle comes this light and says the Paleozoic tells a story. And from the castle comes this prince, the spirit of this prince, just like a whale. Like a dolphin. And then there he be, like a seal. Oh, is this a play on words? Like a dolphin, a whale, like a seal, and it's the seal? What? What? And then he, like, gets up in her, the sea me, to the bottom of the sea. What? The grand history at the bottom of the sea. The bottom of the sea, which makes me myself. I'm so fascinated. And then, yeah. And then she comes down and she has the spirit of old Princey Pooh within her, and she manages to beat him. All right. And then Ammonite. They said that name again. And Ammonite it's like basically the fossil that's on Omastar. Or, yeah. The fossil. But yeah. And then there's the spirit of the prince, like, escapes her in that moment. But she cut through his sword. Oh, and then she's like, oh, wait, what did I do? What happened? And Himiya's like, what happened? And I liked it. I like Kiryu's like, what? What was that? Was that the power to revolutionize the world? The power of Dios that she accessed. I do feel a little bit bad for Saionji in this moment because he was like, what? How did you beat me? That doesn't seem possible. And then he just kind of like lets it, like drops his guard. And then she's like, oh, So then she goes back to the mansion, like, you know, baked a cake, let the monkey have the cake. And then Himamiya's like, oh, I thought you were going to lose on purpose. And she's like, well, I did it for Choo Choo. If you ended up with Saionji, you just pick on him, right? I'm like, oh, girl, being so tsundere. But him and Mia seems okay with it. And so, yeah. So we're going to have a ball next episode. That's exciting. The blonde looks like she's showing up. Kiryu looks like he's going to be making moves. So I'm super excited, but I'm like, what? What? So with the prince and his involvement, the prince seems like in game. Like he's the one we want to get to the castle to get the power to revolutionize the world. But he originally was the one that gave the ring to Utena. So when he said the ring will guide you to me, is he wanting her to get to the castle to see him? But is he him and Mia? Are they one and the same? I don't know. I don't know. And Saionji and Kiryu, we have the blonde hair, which I'm glad we're meeting them next episode. I was like, I don't want to wait till like halfway through the season to meet the people in the OP. I want to get to know them now. But we don't know their names, right? We know the blonde, she seems like her and Kiryu have very distinct styles. The blue and orange haired individuals, they both like share outfit designs. So I'm curious to know like what's their deal? What are we doing with them? And then yeah, we have Choo Choo, and what would an anime from the late 90s be without an animal sidekick, right? I'm just so curious. I don't even know. So yeah, I'm so excited, but I can't wait to find out what's gonna happen next episode. I like me a ball. I'm great with it. So I am also curious to hear your thoughts about that song, about that damn song. I know there's probably spoilers with it, and when we get to a certain point in the series, that song will make so much sense. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm back very soon with more Revolutionary Girl Utena. Bye!